Gemini from Google 2.5 Flash is super good at being super quick. It's dumb cheap, and the quality of the answers is actually fairly strong. And maybe that's just because Google is making up for lost time by having like a sunken cost by doing all these Gemini models for free, essentially. But you might as well use it while it's there. And if Google is going to do it, you best believe other companies, other research labs are also going to try and follow that suit of introducing a cheaper alternative, trying to fight the Anthropics and the OpenAIs. So for me, it comes down to like the cost, latency, and like integration to my system.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Modern Web. I am your host today. My name is Danny Thompson. I'm the Director of Technology at This.Labs, and I am joined with a very, very special guest today, MelkeyDev. Melkey, we go actually way back, which is kind of fun for this episode in particular. Melkey, for those that aren't familiar, he is a machine learning infrastructure engineer at Twitch. He is a Go developer. He is kind of popular on social media. I like a lot of his takes. He actively streams on Twitch, and I've personally seen him be quite effective at helping people not just understand but grow their careers in tech. So I mean, kudos to you there, Melkey. What's going on? How you doing? And have I done justice to your intro?
Yeah, the intro was great, man. Thank you. That was funny. You turn it on, man. You know, you ever watch like Hot Ones on YouTube with the host? Yeah, every time I watch like behind the scenes, the guests are always like, "Yeah, dude, like we talk casually, but then when the camera starts, like you turn it on, and, like that's what happened with you right there, dude." Like,
you know why? Because right before we jumped on this call, for those that don't know, I was eating something and it was hot. So I guess I was almost on Hot Ones.
Yeah.
And so it had my brain in a distracted moment. But regardless, I'm really excited for this one. Mainly because, you know, we've geeked out a couple times, and I see kind of where your thought process is in several specific areas. For those that don't know, I recently was at the AI World's Fair conference in San Francisco. Really great experience. I learned a lot. It got me really, really thinking about specific topics. And as we were talking about it, you are aligned with that interest within that AI space.
Yeah.
But it's in a different sector, because, you know, every podcast, everyone right now, of course, it's like the biggest news in the world, AI. But you want to kind of take it from a different angle. You're more interested not just in AI, but business use cases, which I think is fantastic. Because a lot of people think about it from like a productivity standpoint or something along those lines. But you see that, but you see a different side as well. And so I kind of wanted you to like take me through that a little bit. Where are your interests aligned right now with AI?
Yeah. So I've been like within the AI space like for a long time. Before like the LLM boom with like OpenAI and Anthropic and all these things. Like that's kind of what I did my master's in, was like AI, and it was really fun, really cool. And I think that allowed me to really understand like the capabilities. And even at that time, like there was like programming, like obviously like creating scripts, systems, and then ML engineering was really coming in. I really saw how that was standing out, even relative to other programming things. And even now, with this boom of LLMs, I think there's a lot of like scrappy young people, or just people in general, making apps quickly that may be solving a problem using an LLM. And they're probably making like $1 here or two, but like the longevity of it doesn't exist. So for me, I don't think AI and LLMs are going to go away. I don't think they're going to replace programmers I think they are going to shake up the industry, but I don't think like it's going to replace programmers as dire as some people make it think. I do believe that people with a keen sense for business and for entrepreneurship are seeing what AI can do in terms of saving time and cutting costs. And so that to me is like what really opened up this new kind of depth, this new axis of exploring AI. And it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't need to go to, you know, something like Upwork and get like someone to mock up a design for me. Maybe I can do that myself, and maybe can, you know, spruce up some creativity for me, right? And like, you know, I think those are the areas that AI can really help someone go from 0 to 1 super quickly. And then that's the part that I'm super interested in. And then seeing all these like new people come in, man, like the thing that really excites me, like I'm going to be honest, I'm not old, but I'm not young, you know, like I'm I'm about to be like 29, so I'm 28 right now. I'm like late 20s, I would say. And I always have a fine interest in like what the younger generation are always up to. You know, I'm always fascinated what the younger people are going to do because I never want to be that old person who's like, I don't want to learn new technology. Like back in my day, like I always want to be that old guy who's like up to date with the new stuff kids are doing. And seeing all these genius programmers, like 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds coming in like the valley right now with their ideas and how they're just like leveraging AI to help get them going, that's the part that is the most exciting for me. Like if I were to summarize it, it's that.
Well, as one of those younger kids, I'll tell you what we're up to. And you laughed a little too hard at that. I'm just saying. Whoa.
dude, before this, you were telling me about the injuries you had from walking, all right, bro? Like you want to go there, we can go there, dude. This guy was walking and had a major injury in his foot. Like
oh God. No, one thing that, you said something that really sticks out with me because even at AI Engineer, one of the tracks revolved around this concept, and it was tiny teams. And essentially, maybe prior to AI being this big explosion, entrepreneurship for a lot of people was a very intimidating, daunting thing because it's like you have to go try and raise money, you have to scale this up, you have to do this. It's a big, massive undertaking. Now, I'm not saying that if you wanted to create a company now, those considerations aren't there, but the path is significantly shorter to proof of concept than it was previously. And it kind of like one hindrance, I think, prior to this, and it's funny because like when you look at Vercel and fluid compute, this is when my idea started, or my mind started wrapping around this idea that they started solving like concurrency at scale, essentially, where it's like if you're making an AI call and it takes 30 seconds long, well, all your other calls are backed up waiting for that call to occur. But now if you can have multiple AI calls going at the same time, within that 30-second loop, you're only being billed for that one call, which speeds up everything dramatically, right? Going from single-threaded to multi-threaded. And so now it's like, if we can do something similar now, where you have multiple agents working at a similar time, 5 people now have the speed and agility and strength of 50. That's not necessarily what I look at as like a head reduction tool. But what I am saying is you now have an ability to kind of increase your productivity to a certain point where now it's like, oh, I can output as much as larger teams. This is why you're starting to see this trend, especially within the AI space, where these smaller orgs are garnering $10 million to $50 million of revenue in a single calendar year and really scaling it up. Like I've met quite a few of them in San Francisco when I was there, which was mind-blowingly incredible. One specifically being around medical billing. They're solving a lot of problems within medical billing, and they were able to garner, I think it's like $30 million in 9 months. Yeah, and crazy. It's a team of 6. So like exactly. the ability is pretty incredible what it gives you. And so like what are some of those things that you're noticing, or have you seen, or have you thought about in regards to like a tiny team being able to compete with larger scale organizations?
Yeah, I think so. Right away, I think younger, scrappier teams have less red tape, and having less red tape, I'm a big fan of, if you don't know what you're talking about, don't add yourself to the conversation. You can ask questions, but don't dictate how something should be done if you're not like a key component. And like this happens a lot of big tech companies. If you ever try to roll something out, if you're a scrappy team, you can get it like, pretty far down the line, but then eventually you hit some director of some org, of some team that needs to be involved in a doc meeting, in a review, and having all that red tape, really all it does is add friction, or it just makes the person who's being added aware of what's going to happen, so they can either take credit or say, I told you so. And like a lot of that is just kind of like junk. And so a lot of these,
or the third thing, office politics that you have to now start.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like so there's a bunch of stuff going on with these big companies, and it is the way it is for these companies at that scale, like whatever, if whatever, if that's your boat, go ride in it. But for these younger, scrappier kids, like they don't care, like they're like, yeah, let's send something, and if it breaks in production, fine. Like all we do is work on this product. So there's no 9 to 5, right? Like for tiny, smaller teams, there's really no 9 to 5, and there's no really like you're the only person on call. It's kind of like if something breaks, all of us are on it right away. So it's less dire in those situations. But the second thing isn't even like productivity tools in a sense of RAG or creating these agents. Like I think that's a very obvious topic that everyone's talking about. You can have a bunch of presenters like, oh, we cracked RAG and like all this junk. I think really what LLMs have done is showcase another way of accepting information. And so like one of the most popular ways we're aware of is like Google, right? The search engine. We were able to get anything we wanted by typing in a search engine and getting it. And with LLMs, not only do you have that, but you have it go deeper for your particular like use case. Because what I search on Google is going to be the same thing that you search on Google, right? We can change up the keywords, but the results are probably going to be the same. With an LLM, you can ask it a question and you can ask it, does this apply to what I'm building, right? It can build that conceptualization, that context to see, okay, maybe I can spin this question in a way that's applicable to my user. And that is really what is allowing people to get answers they need right away and the answers they need for the particular problems. It's like a practical answer versus just like a general answer.
So when it comes towards not just the tooling, but the evaluation of these tooling, right? Right now, a lot of people are evaluating like open source models or even like localized models that they could have themselves versus like maybe proprietary APIs. What are you doing to benchmark any of this? Like, what are your considerations and how are you using it, especially real world use cases? Have you seen anything that could be like a potential pitfall for like production that you may have ran into or encountered yourself?
Yeah. So like two things in that, like how do I evaluate different models? Is that like kind of the first way you asked me that question?
Correct.
Yeah. So I actually talked to the Primogen about this, and really, like if we're being honest with ourselves, if I were to give you the answer for a coding question amongst like several different models like Claude 4, Claude 3.7, Claude 3.5, I doubt you'll be able to tell me exactly which one's which, right? There's going to be certain differences, but I don't think you'll be like, oh yeah, that's definitely a Claude 4 answer versus, oh no, that's a Claude 3.5 haiku answer. And so like a lot of the quality that comes from these model answers is built off of their like context model. And so for me, evaluating, and I'm not saying like all models will give you the same result. Like there's definitely better models than others for use cases, but in a general scope, like they all do a pretty decent job. And so for me, when it comes to evaluating models, I actually look more specifically on like cost and latency, especially for something that I want to build in production. Like you said, if one single request to a model costs you like $1 per million tokens and there's a 30-second latency, like that is not going to work. Like that's just like simply not going to work. It just doesn't scale. It's going to break your bank and your user going to be waiting 30 seconds for you to watch a loader. Like that's not great. Whereas like other models like Gemini from Google 2.5 Flash is super good at being super quick. It's dumb cheap and the quality of the answers is actually fairly strong. And maybe that's just because Google is making up for lost time by having like a sunken cost by doing all these Gemini models for free, essentially. But you might as well use it while it's there. And if Google is going to do it, you best believe other companies, other research labs are also going to try and follow that suit of introducing a cheaper alternative, trying to fight the Anthropics and the OpenAIs. So for me, it comes down to like the cost, latency, and like integration to my system. And then the kind of second part of your question is like, have I seen any downfalls for AI models in production? There's a lot. There's a ton of different things. Like there's actually so many. Like the security, privacy. Like what happens then, right? Who stores that data? Like if you're responsible for a leak, is it on you, right? Because you're the liaison between user and eventually their LLM. So how much of that is on you versus not? There's also like, what if the LLM spits back like a very bad answer, right? Like an offensive answer and stuff like that. And the most important one that I found is actually, like we said, it's TPS. It's like load management, right? It's so many of these like APIs, like especially Anthropic, like to get them to give you like a pretty good API that can handle like 1,000+ TPS, like it's pretty expensive, and you sometimes have to like go through some hurdles, right? So I think a lot of the times for Anthropic models, the biggest problem I've seen is getting enough resources that allows you to make like calls at scale.
You know, that's fair. when you first started, I didn't know where you were going with that as far as not knowing the difference between the responses from the models. Verbiage, I definitely agree with you. I think a lot of that comes down to the models. Definitely context is a big thing. I definitely have found myself using certain models for certain tasks. Like anything UI related, I still leverage Claude 3.7. I think it's probably one of the best UI AI related models out there. As far as like developing UI related items or dealing with UI related bugs. But anytime I start asking it anything like coding logic focused, man, it's so bad at it.
Yeah.
And I still, for a while, was going back to 3.5. As of the time of recording this right now, 4 has been pretty solid in logical coding problems. I still don't like it as much as I like 3.7 for the UI related things. So there's been things that I've learned there. But latency, I think that's one of the most fairest considerations. And it's definitely like a big consideration that even I'm making in some projects. I was recently talking with the CEO of a company called Bot Test AI. And one of the cool things with this one is he's basically creating a testing solution for not just agentic models, but chatbots, conversational AI, etc. For a lot of the testing tools out there, they just check that was a response given, but it's not actually auditing and checking the quality of said response. And so his solution is kind of dealing with that. And seeing that made me realize how much further we need to kind of be in our auditing of these responses, especially if it's like a customer-facing product. Because if it's internal users, we can deal with pain points. We can kind of deal with whatever issues may exist. But when it's a customer, one bad experience is all it takes for them to find that unfollow button, that cancel subscription button, and then you're back trying to do customer acquisitions again.
Yeah. One thing you said that really interested me was like you have like, I know like a good UI model for my cases. Like I know. So what's funny? I actually think majority of those models, like I actually disagree with your point. I think majority of those models are fairly the same. And the reason why I can back that is, V0 from Vercel? Yeah, so V0, it uses the Anthropic models behind, like, as the model. But really, the magic of V0 is their system prompt. Their system prompt is like an 800-line system prompt. And those instructions are so thorough, so specific, so particular that when V0 went from like the 3.5 model to 3.7 to now 4.0, the quality never like really jumped. It was never like a sudden shift in quality. It didn't go worse when you improved the model, or it didn't go better. It kind of just stayed the same. And in my opinion, V0 is like the best product for UI enhancements. Like, and it blew my mind. Like I use like generic models to make my UI stuff because I'm not a front end guy. But when I got into V0, I was like, holy crap, like this is really a particular solution for a particular problem programming. It was able to create like components, make them look nice, follow my instructions. And it really like, I saw the power of a system prompt. And so where I'm going with this is models are going to be different, right? They're going to differ. There's certainly going to be aspects of it. But I think the real squeeze is actually like the prompt and the system prompt. I think that's really what's going to make a good experience with a model stand out from a bad experience with a model.
So is your hypothesis that if we have 3 models, all from Anthropic, Claude 3.5, then we do 3.7 and 4.0, with the exact same prompt, the UI should be somewhat similar?
Yeah.
I would, after this recording, let's test it. Because I've done this multiple times to where they're actually very different.
Would you
from a UI aspect?
Maybe a good question is, would you be able to tell the difference? Like if I were to do it, so
drastically different.
Okay, so if I were to, how would we do this? You give me the prompt. Okay, you give me a prompt. I'll run it on those 3 models, and I'll just give you the answer, and you kind of rank which model gave me what answer. Because I don't think most people will be able to do that. That's my stance.
Yeah, I mean, you might not necessarily be able to pinpoint, well, 3.7 definitely made this, 4.0 made this, but I think if you're developing an application and you're using the LLM model to kind of help you in building that out, you would probably reach for a tool that can kind of give you a slightly better design or response based on that prompt. Because for me, a lot when it comes to like the UX UI of a design, it's never the broad strokes; it's the minor details that really pull it together. And so, if you have a model that like is really paying attention to those minor details, you may end up surprised. And I'll definitely show you something that I've been building and working on to kind of prove this forward. Like,
Yeah.
I'm building a pretty large platform, but you can see like the stark difference and like design choices and patterns that one is using versus the other.
Yeah.
Because part of the application is made with 3.7, part is made with 3.5 and 4.0, and you can kind of see like, oh yeah, this is very obvious that this is definitely made with a different model, at least from the differences in the quality of the design.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's going to be differences. Like obviously there's different, like they're trained on different parameters, and as
Right.
more people are going to use them, they're going to just get more data. But I just think like on a general use case, I think most models are like, they're probably going to give you the same quality result for most things. And yeah, maybe it's situational, but I will say like maybe the difference between models, you get like, just for argument's sake, like a 10 to 20% difference, right? Like every time a new model, you get like 20% boost. I think with a proper system prompt, like the V0 example, you increase that by like 50%, right? So I think it slowly becomes less of a model problem and more of a system prompt problem.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be the first one to say I definitely agree with you somewhat. Like at least I'm known like around people that know me. I'm like the king of long structured prompts. Like I'll go multiple pages and upload that doc as my prompt. I'm very big into the structure because generally speaking, like I wanted to execute at a high level. Plus, you know, originally, like I geeked out on like the quality of the code that I wrote. Now it's more along the lines of where I'm finding like a newfound interest is how can I manipulate this model in a way that really helps me develop something next level. And like one of the things that I fell in love doing now is I'm constantly like pen testing my code with my LLM models. Like I'm constantly trying to make it find vulnerabilities. I'm constantly trying to make it find things that I'm not necessarily paying attention to.
Right.
Or maybe one iteration of code used like a weaker version of something that could be more secure. And so either I can audit that myself or have an LLM model do it for me. And so that's kind of been a new area that I've kind of been going into.
You know what's crazy though? So you say this, like we talked, for people who don't know, me and Danny had a conversation last week. We were just kind of talking.
Yeah.
Just whatever. We're talking about LLMs and how we use LLMs. Like we'd be the first people to tell you like we use LLMs, right? All the time. I want to ask you, did you see the new paper that came out from, let me see the school, I have it open here, but okay, the school from MIT, I think, where it basically says your brain on ChatGPT and the accumulation of cognitive debt when using an AI assistant for essay writing. Have you seen this floating around?
No.
Okay, I'm going to send it to you, and I'm not going to like make us read it, but TLDR, there's a group of MIT students, and Dan, I'm going to send it to you on Twitter, okay?
Okay.
And basically what they did was they had like 3 different groups of students. One group were using like an LLM to write an essay. Another group did not have an LLM to write an essay. And then I think there was a third like holdout group or something. And what they found was that the people who didn't use an essay were able to explain exactly what their essay was about to a pretty high matching rate, right? Like they wrote the essay.
Can you clarify that again? You said the same word twice by accident.
Which
you
one?
said a group that didn't use an essay?
Oh, sorry. The group that didn't use the LLM were tasked to create an essay, and they wrote the essay just like, you know, without the LLM, and then an hour later were asked to tell us what they wrote. And they were able to explain what they wrote probably to a high T, like almost like a 99% match rate. The people who used an LLM to write the essay couldn't explain what they had just wrote an hour ago. There was like laps and leaps in that skill. And then what they found with the third group was that they were asked to write an essay after using an LLM. So you basically write 2 essays. You write one with an LLM, and then you write another one without an LLM. And what they found was the second essay was way, way worse than people who never used an LLM to begin with.
What do you mean by the second essay? So the first 2 I followed. The second one, meaning they first used an LLM to write the essay.
Yes.
And then following that, they wrote their own version of the essay by hand.
Yeah, just a second essay by hand. So
and their second essay that they wrote was far worse than any other groups.
Exactly. And so what that says is that not only is an LLM, like even when I was telling you, you're like, yeah, for sure, if you're gonna use an LLM, you're not gonna remember what it wrote. But the kind of second effect that this is highlighting is that you are essentially like getting worse at tasks that you would normally be able to be good at after using LLM to do that task. So it's like you're not even exercising your brain anymore.
That's interesting, considering I need to look into this paper. I will be looking into this paper.
Yeah.
So for me, generally speaking, when I'm using like an LLM to do anything, I don't use it in the way that most people do. Like my goal is, like, I've already thought through the things that I want. I want you to just type it out for me because it's going to save me more time, right? And then I can focus on other areas. Like generally speaking, I use it a lot for front-end related tasks.
Yep.
And that way I can focus on back-end logic, back-end heavy items, stuff like that. I will say most people that I see use an LLM model for coding specifically, they don't really audit the quality. They go for what I call like visual checks. Like they add it, they run the server, or not run the server, they compile like npm run dev, and now they're checking out on the website to see like, okay, localhost looks good, yada, yada, yada. And then when they run into a bug, like, oh my God, I can't believe I ran into a bug.
Yeah.
A lot of them aren't really auditing what's being written. They're not going through it line by line, et cetera, et cetera. I'm the type that I want to go through line by line. Just to make sure like nothing was egregiously changed the way that I didn't intend it or want it to. And so oftentimes when people see me using it, they're like, oh, I would never use it like this. I'll just accept it and see how it goes. Which was actually at Stripe Sessions, it was like a running joke in the keynote, like, oh, who wants to read this? I'm just going to accept it and see what happens. And then, of course, the code didn't perform in the way that the Stripe CEO wanted it to, and he had like come up with something on the fly, right? I'm a little different on that. But I do find that interesting that if I had LLM write something for me and then I wrote my own version of that essay afterwards, after doing the research and things of that nature, it still came out even worse than both groups. That's mind-blowing. So that's like an interesting thing to kind of look into.
Yeah. I think the danger here, like I think you and I were so into the tech space.
Mm-hmm.
I think the real like danger of an LLM, and this really hit me after reading this article, I won't lie. And I read this article like this week. It's if I'm going to use an LLM for even other tasks, like not even code-related tasks, let's say I'm just like you and I'm able to read line by line and I'm like super in it, right? Like, you know, like I'm the 1% of the 1% that can use an LLM. But if I'm using an LLM for like other tasks, right? Like just like some general stuff, like what does this mean? How do I do this? What, you know, just like things that I could probably solve in a longer time if I just spent time critically thinking. I think what's actually going to happen with an LLM for certain people is you're going to stop exercising your brain. Exercising your brain is a little bit more complicated. There's a little bit deeper layer. Like, is reading a book considered exercising your brain? Maybe. But what if you're just like kind of just reading it, but you're not really retaining? So, you know, it's like a depth of like what is truly exercising your brain. Like Sudoku puzzles, other puzzles, stuff like that. Maybe we could argue that. But a day-to-day operation, if you're not going to like use critical thinking or like really strain your brain, it's probably just going to like be like a muscle. It's going to get flat. And that to me is pretty scary, right? Because I know the effect. Again, we were talking about this before the stream. When I get injured, I see my muscles on my physical body get like weaker, get just like flat, right? I can't see that with my brain, right? There's no visual indicators like, hey, you haven't used your brain in 2 weeks, you've been injured, I'm now turning flat. Like, I can't see that. And I think that's what makes it super scary when you don't spend the time exercising your brain. And I don't want that to happen to me. So I really like reevaluated my dependency on LLMs after reading this paper. Yeah.
That's an interesting one. Although I will say if I start getting weaker in the front end, I wouldn't be too mad.
Yeah.
I'm probably like one of the more back end enjoying and focused individuals on our team. Front end is a means to an end. I love back end logic a lot more. But there's definitely some people that love, thrive, and absolutely build some incredible things via the front end.
Yeah.
From my focus is more on the logical aspects of things. But, you know, this is kind of like an interesting segue now. You give me some things to think about, though, after this. With that being said, I know a big portion of your career, including mine for multiple years, was around Golang and writing Go. I did that for multiple years. I I won't really jump into a lot of the technical aspects or complexities, but I am like interested on your take now, given this current market and where we see things going. What is your opinions on like the careers with Go? Is it really worth pursuing at this point? But more so on top of that, like how do you see the industry kind of shifting in that regard?
Yeah, I think I will say I think Go is like I think Go is a good language, right? But then there's this like very fine like line, like this axis, right? Like what languages will get people jobs faster, and then what languages will not get people jobs, right? Except in like niche scenarios. And it's easier to see the ones that are very niche, and those would be like Zig. Like it's very hard to get a Zig job, right? Because there's just like not that many. I think Zig is a wonderful language, and I think it's gonna have some insane potential, but it's not even 1.0 released. It's super small, it's super niche. There's lots of cool things being built on top of Zig, so that shouldn't deter you from using it. But if we're looking strictly of like an objective function, like where to get a job, these like very extravagant languages like Zig and similar ones, they're just harder. Like, there's not that many job postings that say like, oh, we're looking for a Zig developer, right? Or like a Elixir developer or Haskell developer. Whereas on the flip of that axis, we have the more obvious ones like Python and JavaScript, TypeScript. Like every big tech company is going to need those, so that's a pretty safe bet. But then the downside is there's lots of competition. And so Go, in my opinion, is kind of like this middle, maybe a little bit more towards the niche side, simply because majority of Go developers are going to be purely backend. So we're doing just pure backend logic and or microservices, right? And a lot of the time, a lot of Go shops will leverage Go to either be their entire backend or a small portion of an existing backend, right? And just from that sentence, it could either open up a lot of jobs or a small amount of jobs. My take is Go is a very strong, dependable, and reliable language for the majority of companies. I think it's going to have more jobs than, let's say, a Rust or a Haskell or like the ones I mentioned before. And I think as more companies have more dependencies on cloud infrastructure, I think that's where we're going to see a lot more specific job opportunities open up for Go developers.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Go is one of those languages where it seems like when a company tests it out, trials it, or experiments with it, it becomes part of their architecture.
Yeah,
and so it's just
because
them. Yeah,
it's because of developer velocity. There's always a thing like everyone says that, right? Everyone's like, yeah, like Go is kind of boring to write, and it is. Like Go is not sexy. It's boring. You didn't write the same logic all the time. But what it does for a team, it increases developer velocity like nothing else.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I was working at a company previously where everything was Java Angular, and we rewrote our code base into React and Go. And the microservices ability alone, even though Java has microservices, something about Go, the only thing I really hated adjusting to was two specific things. Number one, explicitly creating a solution for every single error. Otherwise things would break. And the other one was having to use protobufs. That was like an adjustment, at least in my logic at that time. But outside of those two specific things, Go was fantastic for me. I liked that a lot. It was fast. It was very performant. Our website increased dramatically just from that adjustment alone. And of course, like, getting rid of anything legacy related is always going to be like a big uptick. But it was a very considerable uptick to where you could not deny its addition to the company was a big value add. And so I guess from that aspect, if somebody was toying with the idea of going in the world of Go, what would be some considerations that you would offer them, or like maybe even some tips that you would offer them?
Yeah, I mean, I think Go is, if anyone's interested in learning Go, the best thing to do is actually go through all the documentation from the Go website. So Tour of Go, Effective Go. Those are some really good resources. On my own YouTube channel, I have like a bunch of videos talking about like best research to learn Go. I have a video coming out of that soon actually, where I go through like things that help me go from a beginner to an expert. So watch out for that. I have my own course that I think is pretty good, obviously, but I can give you a bunch of these lists. I can self-plug until your ears fall off and you start to hate me. I think really the biggest tip I give to people who want to adopt Go or any language is more of a philosophical avenue. Like, think of like why would you learn Go? What does Go offer in terms of like an experience for yourself, whatever that means, right? If it's like going to be, if you want to be a front end guy turning into a back end, Go is a great middle language. If you just enjoy the syntax of Go, whatever, find what it is and really adopt the mindset of what a Go developer wants to do. So I think it's always like start with the philosophy of the language, as deep as that can sound, and then work your way back from that. And then you'll find all the courses, you'll find all the textbooks. Okay, you'll always have time for that. But once you adopt like the way it was intended to be written, I think that's when you get the most bang for your buck with any language, but Go specifically. Like idiomatic Go is harder to get to than anything else.
I think this is a good point to stop. So this is actually fun. We may need to do this one again and kind of dive in a little bit deeper on some subjects. If y'all like this one, let us know in the comments or go ahead and send us an email. We're always open to those items and kind of sharing that on the show. But I just want to say one more time that this episode was brought to you by This.Labs. They want me to remind you that they are the experts in modern web development and consulting. If you are looking to scale up your development teams efficiently or need assistance in turning your innovative ideas into reality with robust proofs of concept, This.Labs has you covered. This.Labs doesn't just build software, they build partnerships. They collaborate closely with your team to understand your unique challenges and craft tailored solutions that drive real results. Join the many companies that have accelerated their growth and innovation with the help of This.Labs. Visit this.co to discover how they can help you take your projects to the next level. And everyone, we will see you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.
Peace.